A lot of people right now feel pretty good about holding cash. You hear it everywhere. Why risk the market when you can get 5% risk-free? High yield savings are finally worth it again. Cash is king. And on the surface, that logic does make sense. 5% feels high, especially if you've lived through the past where the rates were zero. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Cash is not winning. Cash is losing, quietly. I want to explain today why cash feels safe to you and why it feels smart at the time, although it is still working against you even at this 5% rate. I'm not here to scare you. This is no gamble. This is just pure facts for me to show you. Why does cash feel like the best option right now? First, cash gives certainty. Cash doesn't fluctuate at all. You don't wake up down 3%. There's no risk inherently. There's no volatility. You open your account and the number is very stable. That alone is very attractive after multiple years of chaos. Maybe you're burning for a while and you want to hold some liquidity on hand, and that makes it comfortable. Another reason, 5% right now feels extremely high because you're anchored to the past. For most of the 2010s, cash actually paid no money. So when these interest rates have jumped to 4, 5, and even 5+%, it feels very generous. That comparison is very misleading. The real question is 5% high compared to last year? The real thing you have to consider is, what are you competing against? That is where cash quickly starts to fall behind. To understand this, you have to know the difference between nominal and real returns. This is where most people get very tripped up and they see 5% and they don't think. 5% is a nominal return. It's the number before the reality comes in. What actually matters is your real return. What's left after inflation and taxes. So we can walk through this now slowly. If inflation is running at, say, 3 to 4% and you're earning 5% on cash, your real return is already closer to 1 to 2%. Now factor in taxes here. Most people are paying both ordinary income tax on that interest, federal tax, state tax, probably both. That 5% begins to shrink really. Suddenly, your question that you have to ponder becomes, is your purchasing power actually growing, or is it just standing still or slipping back slowly? That's why cash doesn't feel right in the short term. Cash is dangerous if you don't know what to do with your money. It's dangerous in the long term. It's comfortable. You can stay in there. You're making some money. It's not enough to get you by. It basically is like a sand dune that's quickly becoming eroded by winds, and eventually nothing will be left. Inflation is not uniform, and that is the key insight. And inflation isn't just one number. The inflation that matters most isn't CPI, it's asset inflation. Look at housing, look at equities, look at private businesses, look at land. These things inflate at a much different rate than consumer goods. Cash is priced in the same currency that's inflating the fastest. Assets create reprice upwards. This creates a major structural problem. When you hold cash, you're holding the unit that's being debased. When you hold assets, you're holding claims on real output. So even if CPI looks controlled, asset prices often continue to drift higher. And that's why people are saying things like, I've been saving for years and everything keeps getting more expensive. This is more of the poor person's mindset. They're not imagining it. They're just holding the wrong side of the coin at this moment. The next thing is the opportunity cost. It's the invisible loss, and this is where cash really loses. It's not in what it does, but it's what it prevents. Cash has an opportunity cost. When you're earning 5%, your other assets are actually compounding. They're reinvesting. They're adjusting to inflation in real time. You don't need markets to explode. You just need them to grow modestly. And over years, that difference compounds massively. You do not need to go out and invest in risky stocks or risky buys. You just need to invest in something that gives you growth, even in the shorter time horizon. People who wait for certainty, they often end up paying more later. You didn't lose money outright, you just missed a compounding window. Cash feels safe to you because it doesn't move, but compounding only works if something does. Cash only performs best during fear, not times of stability. Historically, we've seen that cash shines during moments of panic. During crashes and market freezes and forced selling, cash is the best. Cash gives you options. As soon as that fades, which is the most of the market in the current world that we live in, as soon as that fear fades, the cash becomes very passive. And in a world where the governments are incentivized to inflate and cause inflation and to spend and create deficits and avoid deflation at all costs, cash starts to melt and erode away, just like that sand dune analogy that I gave you earlier. Consistent. There's a psychological trap when it comes to waiting, and this part matters more than math. Holding cash often turns into waiting, and it waits for better prices, more clarity, and the right time. Market doesn't ring a bell here, and clarity usually arrives after prices move. After something has jumped up 50-60%, then you start to say, oh, why didn't I buy it? After something has fallen 50-60%, you think to yourself and you say, I knew it, I should have sold. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes to re-enter. And now prices feel higher, prices feel lower, risk feels bigger, and regret creeps in. That's a human behavioral issue. Keep invested, stay invested, and when cash does make sense. Cash is important if you have emergency funds or short-term expenses or optionality. You should always have cash on hand whenever the VIX strikes above a certain point. I like to call it 26. In this point, you should reinvest all your capital. However, volatility. You want to have options in case the VIX spikes, and you want to be able to reinvest at that time. It's a moment of time whenever you will need liquidity, or you'll need emergency funds or short-term expensive. This is why a leading growth strategy, cash preserves and it does not build. If you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, we live in a system where debt is normalized, inflation is tolerated, and asset ownership is rewarded. Cash is constantly pressured. It's just the structure of the current world we live in. When someone mentions that they're cash heavy, they say stay safe. They want to optimize that for emotional comfort, not for their long-term purchasing power. Time in the market beats timing the market. That's a conscious choice that most people have to meet, and dollar cost averaging will always beat cash. To each their own. People have different time horizons and look at their investing as short-term and long-term gains. So we know here that cash is not collapsing. Nothing's happening to cash. It's not going to zero. It's not going to disappear. It's just about losing relevance as a growth vehicle to keep up with current inflation rate. 5% sounds really good to us, but the context here matters. And the real risk is not volatility. The real risk is standing still. Everything else will creep higher, and cash doesn't scream when it fails you. There's no big jump in the market. It's very quiet losses that you are taking when you keep your money in cash. Thanks for listening to this one. I'll see you in the next one.